from beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I do appreciate you spending your time with me today. You guys are going to recognize my guest because he is quite infamous within libertarian circles, kind of a, a living legend at this point, especially for those of us who have a problem with police, which I think anybody who's paying attention has a problem with the police situation in this country. But that is Mr. Brian Ellison. So welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sherry. It's always good to be on here.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's our third show together, which is great.
That is great.
Yeah, I think you're I've interviewed you more than anybody else.
I mean, that makes me more famous than anything else at this point, I think.
Right, yeah, sure. All right, well, I wanted to talk to you a few things. So we'll get an update from you about everything that's going on up there with the Royal Oaks PD. But I really wanted to talk to you first about your game that you have coming out. So it's called The Thin Blue Line. And tell us about what it is and where it came from.
So talking about kind of where it came from, there's a group of us, and it happened to be a group that was working on my campaign. So it's myself, Desiree Lindsay, Tyler Lindsay, J.C. Cook, and Daniel Berman. We were just kind of brainstorming on different things that we could do as far as outreach, because we spent so much time reaching inward within the libertarian circles in order to get our message out. And we wanted to try and come up with a unique way that we could do some outreach and we could get some libertarian type messages to a wider audience. And I think it was J.C. Cook that came up with the basic concept. I mean, he's brilliant. And so he came up with the concept. Tyler Lindsay is a big game guy. That's like one of his hobbies is creating games. And so we kind of started putting it all together, and we spent, I don't know, a month or so just. Can you still hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. No, I thought I heard something weird, and so I'm sorry. Anyway.
No, it's no problem.
I just want to make sure I wasn't talking to myself. I tend to do that sometimes. So. So we just started strategizing, and originally we had this concept of something to be similar to like Cards Against Humanity, and but the theme being all basically law enforcement, and that just kind of evolved into this the game that we actually came up with. And originally we were just hoping, we wanted to get something that was kind of tongue in cheek. Got a message about police corruption and things like that, but in kind of a lighthearted and fun way. Mm-hmm. And once we worked out all the details and we got the game, and I got the prototype deck, I don't know, about a month and a half ago maybe, and we started playing it. The game is like super fun. So we're like, besides just being a great, a cool design, and besides having a good message, it was really fun to play. And so right now we're just in the process of trying to market it. Dan Berman came up to Michigan from Mexico. I don't know where he lives. He may live somewhere other. I don't know where he lives. Anyway, he came to visit, and we recorded a great commercial. Dan's got all the fancy equipment to do that, and we were able to produce a short commercial, and it came out great. And we launched the website. We put it out on Kickstarter, and again, the game turned out so much better than I even imagined. I thought it would just be kind of goofy, but once we played it, and since I've had the test deck, and now there's a second test deck, everybody who's played it has a blast. And so we are super excited to get this game into people's hands, because once they play it, it's gonna be selling like crazy. It'll sell itself once people have it in their hands. So we're very excited about it. And you can buy it through. I think, Sherry, you're going to have your own unique link, so I'm not going to direct the listeners where to go to find it. But you should follow Sherry's link, and you guys should all get a copy of Thin Blue Line, the game.
Yeah, I loved it, because when I first saw it, I thought, "What in the world is this?" And knowing who you were, I knew it wasn't going to be like support the police type thing. So I watched the video of the commercial, and I was cracking up. I thought it was so funny, because it was very like what I would call normie friendly. It was tongue in cheek, and I think it's got to be if you're trying to reach out to people other than, like you said, the libertarian bubble, and get that message out there. And it's not something that people are going to say, oh well, he's terrible or something for that. But it's definitely got its own slant to it. So.
Right. And originally when we talked about it, we were talking about like, well, let's do, we could do 2 different marketing campaigns and market one campaign directed at, I don't know what some people, not me, but what some people may call like bootlickers,
right.
all the people that love the cops. And we were thinking, let's market it directly at them. And then it'll be like pulling a fast one on them. They'll pre-order it. They'll think it's great. And then they'll be all upset. And ultimately we decided like, that's probably not the best strategy.
Right.
We don't want to really be dishonest with people. So we just, again, we came out with it, very tongue in cheek. I think that anybody who really looks at it, on the surface, we wanted to use, really like police jargon. We wanted to use the police symbols and things like that so that it, it just had that feel. But, we decided we don't want to trick anybody about it. This is not, it's I guess it's pro law enforcement from the aspect of it actually addresses law enforcement as it truly exists. And I think that's important. So yeah, but everybody should get a copy. In fact, you should get 2 because if you get 2 decks, you can play with up to 8 people. And again, it's really a fun game. I was surprised at how fun it was to play, and you get to like, lie, cheat, steal, screw over your buddies. It's like, it's the perfect cop game.
Right. Sounds great. Yeah, and I think the commercial too, it does kind of clue in to people that it's not going to be the bootlickers game, right? It's going to be something else. So I'm looking forward to playing it, and I think it'll be a great like party game. So, and I like to have parties, so.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to my kids who were in the commercial, and they did a fantastic job.
They did.
They're not professionally trained actors, but it turned out so great. I was so proud of them, and hopefully they can be internet famous at some point when this game strikes it big.
Yeah, and I noticed, or I was told by Desiree that one of the cards actually has the restraining order, the real restraining order on it from what the Royal Oaks Police Department, when they issued the restraining order against you to stay away from them. Right. Because they need to protect themselves, right?
Right. So the whole so the concept of the game is like you have a certain, it's like you have to make sets, and you want to make, there's different classifications of busts or arrests, and so there's like traffic code violation, drug, and vice. And then in there's some other fun cards, but one of the cards is the Brian Ellison Says Hi card. And it's like it's like cop watcher card, and it's if you're a cop, it's the last thing you want to get is Brian Ellison card, because it's negative points if you have it at the end of the game, and so you want to try and dish it off to another player. But the saving grace in there is the restraining order, because we all know that cops can get a restraining order to keep big bad Brian Ellison away from them. And so we add this cool dynamic to it that's it's obviously very it's familiar to kind of our tight-knit group, but the possibilities with this game, aside from what it is and what it's going to be when we release it, is we can come out with all these other special edition cards and have that do different things and really just change the gameplay dynamic. So aside from it just being a great game right now, it's got tremendous potential. So again, it's super exciting.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I don't know any other libertarians with a game, and libertarian candidates with a game. So I think it's a great new kind of way to get out there, because everybody can do a coffee mug or a T-shirt, but a game is pretty freaking different. So
brilliant. I mean, and I don't get any of the credit for the concept. I helped with some of the design, and I'm helping obviously with the marketing and everything else. But concept-wise, we're talking J.C. Cook, Tyler Lindsay, and Desiree Lindsay. That's all on them. I mean, they're brilliant.
That's awesome. They've done a great job, and they deserve the credit for it, because I think it's it's such a great idea, and to pull it off in a really good way, it's unique. You don't see it very often. So, and I just to move on a little bit, I learned something interesting about you recently that I did not know, and that is that your dad is a Michigan U.S. House of Representatives, right? Or Michigan House of
Not
Representatives.
U.S.
Okay.
Michigan. Yeah. He's a state rep. He's actually my state rep in the district that I live in.
Wow. And he was that while you were growing up, correct?
Well, no, he's really new to that position. He was, when I was maybe in middle school, he ran for the city commission, basically city council. So he did one term back in the 90s. And then sometime in the early 2000s, he ran and got elected as mayor of the city. And so he was mayor of Royal Oak for 13 years. And then in 2016, he was elected as state rep.
Okay.
And so he's been, a marginal career politician, I would say. He's been in politics for quite some time. The mayor job was not really, wasn't a full-time job. So it's hard to say he's a career politician because it wasn't a career. But he's been a politician for, going back to the 90s.
Right. I wanted to ask you about it because I find that really interesting that you have your dad as a politician and you being, an anarchist, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
a closet anarchist, I think sometimes.
So how does that work around the Thanksgiving table? Is that something that you guys talk about, or is it, has it caused issues in the family? I know it does. Sometimes it does.
So going back, my dad has been a very small part of my life since the mid 90s.
Okay.
He moved out of the house when I was in high school, and for instance, the whole time after high school, I joined the military. I spent a couple of years in Europe. Never heard from the guy. I came, while I was, I had lived in Texas and Arizona after I came back from Europe. And, we heard from him occasionally, not much. The whole time I was in Iraq, I never heard from him once. He used it as to gain some political capital by saying, "Hey, my son, he's serving in the army and he's in Iraq right now. I'm a true patriot." But we've never been close. And so, but at the same time, I really tempered my political rhetoric and tabled myself for a long time just out of pure respect for him, because I didn't want to do anything that would harm his reputation. That was something that was important to him. And so I just, I just stayed politically agnostic for a long time. I certainly didn't agree with what he was doing and what he was saying. But I wasn't looking to ruin his I kind of put his whatever he wanted to do above what I wanted to do.
Sure. Yeah, we all have to do that sometimes for our families, I guess, to make the situations the best they can be, because as much as I'm an anarchist as well, my family is aware of that, but there are situations and things we can pretty much talk about it, but they don't want to hear some of my crazy anarchist stuff, and there are relationships within my family, my cousins and things like that have been damaged because they're in law enforcement, and my best friend's in law enforcement, and I was the same way. I didn't speak out really a lot at first about that because I didn't want to cause problems. But then I started thinking, well, why am I the one not speaking out when they should be speaking out at the bad things being done? Because they are good people. But if they're going to not speak out, that makes them terrible cops, just like the rest of them that don't speak out. So the onus isn't on me to not say, point out the problems. The onus is on them to stand up and say there are problems and hold their own brothers to the same standard that they should be held to. So I that's sort of the thing I came to. But you have to be, I think if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to accept that it's going to maybe damage some relationships. Unfortunately, it shouldn't, but sometimes it does.
Right. And when my dad's a Democrat, and when he was running for state rep, I was supportive of that, and not just because he's my dad. This is something that he wanted to do, and I thought having him as a state rep, it would at least give me an opportunity to talk with my state rep and give him. Not that I ever was hoping or expecting to be an advisor to him, but to be able to have to be able to talk to him, be like, hey, this is. You should consider this. You should consider that. This is this is why this is important. I think it's important, and hoping that he would listen. And he was incredibly dismissive, and I think probably more so dismissive of me than he probably would have been as a normal constituent. In fact, at one point when I was talking to him about the cost of insurance, because in the state of Michigan, auto insurance is, excuse me, it's most expensive in this state than it is anywhere else in the country, and so
Brian, did you say auto insurance?
Auto insurance,
okay,
yeah.
We're having sort of a bad connection, so I missed that part.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Nothing to be done.
Okay. So I'll back up and repeat myself. In the state of Michigan, auto insurance is more expensive than it is anywhere else in the country, and in 2000s, it might have been 2017, I guess, when there was some bills going through the House, the state House, in order to put forth some reform and bring down prices. And I reached out to my dad and I said, hey, this plan's coming through. I don't think it's a good idea. I think this would be a better idea, and whatever. And he literally said, I'm not going to talk to you about policy.
Wow.
I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, here I am. I'm trying. Sorry, I did catch myself, but I'm like, I thought that I would have an opportunity, and maybe I'm naive to think that I should have some type of special, connection or some special ability. But I was shut down probably quicker than any other of his constituents were, so that bothered me. So I decided then, I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to run myself. I'm going to have to get politically active. And so I invited him out to dinner, and I told him, this is what I'm going to do. I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt your career. That's the last thing I want to do. But I feel like I have to have a voice. I have to do something. I have to be active. And he laughed, and he was like, oh, you're not going to, I told him I was going to run for Senate. He's like, well, there's no way you could ever affect my career, And I was like, okay, well, I just trying to be courteous. I'm just trying. I don't want to do that negatively impacts you. And he was just very dismissive. And so that relationship has since gone incredibly south, to the point where recently he's done some really horrible things. And but yeah, it is interesting. And then in getting a lecture from him about don't let politics get in the way of family. And the man has 5 biological children, and I can't really speak. I shouldn't speak for all of them, but certainly none of them consider him a good father. And we all have varying degrees of lack of relationship with him. And so it's really unfortunate, but he gets to put on his happy face, in front of the crowds, and everybody thinks, oh, your daddy's such a great guy. And I get so tired of hearing that. But I guess that is probably the story for a lot of children of politicians.
Yeah. My dad was an entertainer, and he wasn't super famous, but regionally famous, and or celebrity, I should say. And I get the same thing, your dad was such a great guy, and I'm like, yeah, there were great things about him, but living with him was not so great. It's kind of hard sometimes when you're in the back end of that and you actually see the real honest person, and it's nothing like the public person. It can be incredibly difficult to come to terms with that.
Right.
So I know it's a tough situation, but speaking of it, is there anything, all right, or unless you had something else you wanted to say about that?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. I just I wanted to ask you, you've definitely run a very audacious campaign. And if you could do anything over, would there be anything that you would do differently, or are you really happy with how you've run things so far?
I'm happy with how the campaign went. So there is some external factors outside of the campaign that have been going on in my life for quite some time. And I'd hate to say in retrospect that would have, I try to live without having regrets. So
Sure.
no, I mean, I don't think I would have done anything different, but I think that things could have been better if some things in my personal life were in a better position. So that's something that certainly we're going to improve on the next time, and there certainly will be next time. We're already looking at where we're going next, and what campaign we're going to run, and how we're going to have a big impact. And it's really exciting, and we're really planning on. I'm probably going to be announcing my intentions in a few weeks, so we'll take a break for campaigning. For we can't take too long of a break. But we do have something in the works, and I think it's going to be a really effective campaign. So, but yeah, I think that just kind of squaring away things in my personal life is probably the only thing that I would say, if I could have done something different, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of every relationship being in the public eye in any way, even if the public is a small. Like for me, I've got a small public, in libertarian circles, whatever. But there's the family life that doing this kind of thing, activism takes away from that, and that's one of the costs of being an activist. One of the costs of putting your time into anything like this is that there are times when you give to that, and it's sometimes it's hard to find that balance. I know I'm still working on finding the balance between doing everything I have to do in my personal life and everything I have to do to keep my shows going. And I want to do both. I really want to do both. But and a lot of people work an outside job while doing that as well. So I kudos to them, because I don't have that particular extra add-on. But I do homeschool my kids, so it takes time. There's a lot of things that eat up. So I know the cost of something like that, and especially, maybe not on the same scale as you, because you've got a lot more public attention, but it definitely can have a negative effect. And sometimes some of the things that people will say to your kids, have your kids experienced any kind of blowback from any of this? Or
it hasn't been, it hasn't been a lot, but at school, I've obviously in the city here, I've earned a reputation, and I'm sure parents are talking about me at home. So, the kids, my kids, and they're older. My daughter is 12, my son's 16, and my older son's 18, so he's out of school. And they go to public school, and it's, they deal with it. Your dad's crazy, and really kind of issues like that. Why would your dad give shotguns to homeless people, and all these things that little brains really can't wrap their heads around all the details. So, but my kids are very resilient, and I don't think it's having, I think it is having an impact on them, and I'm very cognizant of that, and I try to minimize certainly any negative impact. But for instance, my 16-year-old son, he came to a national convention with me, and he got to be involved in a lot of things. He had a good time, and so he's actually started kind of his own brand of activism, which I'm proud of, and he's and so I want my kids to do what's important to them. I don't want to certainly put anything on them, but at the same time, I don't want to shelter them from reality, and really that's my goal, is to share what I see as reality, and what I think needs to change in order to make the world a better place.
Yeah, I agree. It's great when you can bring your kids along with you, and not enforce your ideals on them, but help them. I mean, my son is 16 as well, or almost 16. He'll be 16 in a couple months, and my daughter's 8. And so they have things that are important to them, and things that they, find silly about me or whatever, and the things that I do. And I want to give them that good example of, well, go fight for the things that you think are worth fighting for. It's okay. It's okay to have people not like you because of what you think. And I that for me growing up, and even into my adult life, I really cared what other people thought about me way too much. And now, I'm older, and it's a lot less important to me. It's more important to me to be true to myself. So I hope that they can get that at a much younger age than I did. But I think it's great when you can be that example and bring your kids along into that sort of mindset of you don't have to go with the crowd. You can, think you should think what you think and be, not afraid to speak up about it. So.
Right. And I'm very thankful that all three of my kids do have their own minds. They're very, very intelligent kids, and they're not afraid to speak their mind. And even when to tell me how stupid I am and how much they disagree with me, like, good for speaking up. Have your own opinions.
Yeah.
You can't just take somebody else's opinion. So. No, I mean, I think that whatever impact it's had on my kids, I really think it's for the better.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to think I'm a terrible parent, but we play like fun games together, like who can flip off the cop first while we're driving down the street, things like that. So it's family bonding,
Yeah, I know. I've had some of the most frustrating, but I think best conversations with my 16-year-old about my own beliefs, because nobody will interrogate you better than your own kids and bring up your own
My daughter
faults.
is a genius at that.
Like, if you really believe that, why do you make me eat my vegetables? Like, my daughter, I think she was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was telling her, eat those potatoes. You need to eat your dinner. Like, she's like, Mama, I don't want to eat my potatoes, and it's forcing me to do that. It's wrong to force people to do things. And I'm like, she's got me. Like, what do I do? So, yeah, sometimes they keep you honest.
Yeah, that damn moral agency. Like,
yeah, who needs it? Yeah, I guess we all do. So to kind of round out the show here, why don't you give us the Brian Ellison legal update, everything that's going on with the PD there, the stuff you can talk about, and what the Royal Oaks Police Department is. Are they up to any tricks right now, or what's going on with that?
Okay, so I've had the 2 cases pending for a while now. It was from June and August. Yes. And the last time, so I was in court on those on, would have been like the first week of October, I think. And it was like the 5th. And so when we were there, I argued, because I had an attorney on one case. There's 2 cases. I had an attorney on one case, and then I was representing myself on the other case. And we argued about the bond conditions, and that has become an internet joke, with the bond conditions where I have to stay 50 feet away from any law enforcement officer. So in early October, we argued, and I successfully argued to have the conditions changed so that it only applied to the Royal Oak Police Department. And I mentioned to the judge he wanted specific instances of how it was harming me and how why it needed to change. And so I mentioned to him about how it was prohibited me from being able to campaign, and that was something that was important to me. And so, again, we successfully argued, and he changed it so that it only applied to Royal Oak Police. So we went out and celebrated the next night. It might have been 2 nights later, I don't remember. And we went out following police in Livingston County, and we made a video, and I put it up on YouTube, and it was harmless. No, we were following a cop. We were several feet behind him while we were following him. They came up and approached us. We're like, go away. And it was really kind of an uneventful video, but that happened. And then shortly after that, some other stuff happened in my life, which is part of the details that I really can't get into all the details of what exactly it was happened. But I was charged with assault. And with domestic assault, there is some merit to the accusations that were made. I did not give a statement to the police, as I don't think anybody should give a statement to the police. And so it was not he said, she said. It was simply a she said. And based on the facts of the case, we are, we're proceeding with that. But basically what happened, because that happened, I was arrested. That arrest became a violation of my bond conditions, because one of the bond conditions was to, you can't commit any other crimes. And so I got hauled into court back in Royal Oak, and they wanted to revoke. Well, they didn't want to revoke my bond. They wanted to give me a substantial cash bond, and then wanted to reinstitute the conditions that prevented me from being within 50 feet of any law enforcement officer. And so I went into court on Friday afternoon, and the prosecutor made that argument, and the judge was super pissed off. I don't know what his problem was, why he would take something so personal about what happened. But what he was really upset about was that I had gone out after he had changed the ruling and followed the police. Like, that's the biggest thing that he had a problem with. And he's making these accusations about how dangerous I am and how he thinks that I'm mentally unstable and all these interesting conclusions. And so he said, we're going to, he implemented $5,000 per case fund, and then reinstituted the across the board, any law enforcement, I couldn't be within 50 feet of any uniform law enforcement officer. And then he did something that the prosecutor didn't even ask for, and I still can't wrap my head around why he thought it was appropriate. I don't think he really thought it was appropriate. I think he just did it because, he had ulterior motives. But he ordered that I be taken into custody until I could be fitted with a GPS tether. So this was on Friday afternoon, and they do GPS tethers at the county jail. And so here I am at the district court in the city, and they have to transport me to the county, and the county, whatever. So clearly what he did was he wanted me to be locked up all weekend. And so that's what happened. So I was taken into custody. I spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I got out on Monday at about 4:30 is when I got out of the Oakland County Jail with my tether on. So it was just really odd. And my attorney really didn't even object. It was really kind of disappointing, but it was certainly something that I wasn't prepared for. I didn't have any argument ready. I didn't even see what the motions were before we went into court, which is odd because I was representing myself, and typically you're supposed to serve it on all parties. Mm-hmm. So that's, they got their pound of flesh. They had to pay $390 a month for as long as I had the tether on. There's no conditions. There's no prohibited areas. There's no curfew. I just have to call once a week and report, and they keep track of where I am at all times. So it's really, again, a really odd situation.
It sounds like they mostly want to tell you who the boss is. Like, we can do this to you. Like, that's more. And I think it goes to point out the bigger problem of the state having a monopoly on law and on force, and the fact that just a handful of people making a few waves for the police in an area is like this huge issue. And so, they don't want anyone to disagree with them or to point out that there are problems within their departments, and which there are problems in every department across the country, as far as I'm concerned, with how the whole system works. But someone pointing that out becomes their main enemy, and they've done a lot of things to target you specifically. So I think that in and of itself points to the fact that they're dishonest and corrupt. So, and just the fact that they want to show you that they have the law on their side, and that it doesn't matter what the laws actually are, they will execute them the way they see fit. So even though you're supposed to get the motions beforehand and all that, you don't get them because, they don't want to. And how are you going to fight it? It becomes harder and harder to fight everything because they're all cops. Like, I think it's someone said that they're all cops. When you go into a court, you have to realize that every single person in there is a cop. Except for if you're paying for a private defense attorney, I guess not. But if you are using a state attorney.
Well, I mean, if they're all members of the bar, I mean, they're all buddies. True. They're all, they're all part of the same club. And so, it's amazing how many people tell me, I tell them what's going on, like, that's not legal. They can't do that. And it's like, it's not legal, but they can do it. Like, I think that's an important distinction is, essentially they can do whatever they want.
Right.
The police departments can do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. The court can do whatever they want. And there's never any, they don't pay any price.
Right. They're not accountable.
And the judge will get reelected. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. They do whatever they want because the general public will say, well, you know, this guy deserved it.
Right.
They have so much blind faith in the system, just simply because they've never been caught up in it and they don't know the details of how it works, that they just blindly believe that everything's on the up and up. And you know, when they hear things about what's going on, they just don't believe it because it sounds unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anytime somebody says, well, they can't do that, I'd say, well, they did. Like they did, so they can.
They do it all the time. And yeah, it's it goes, you know, people have to recognize that the laws aren't set up to keep the lawmakers and the law enforcers trapped by those laws. They're to entrap you. The laws are a web to trap the average citizen into whatever the police or the legal system wants. So there's no they're not subject to the same laws. When they just work around them because that's their system. And the cops, we arrested you on this. What are you going to do about it right now? Like, well, that's just take care of in court. You might not actually get to court for weeks. So there's a lot of problems with that. And I think the average person does a lot of victim blaming. Well, if they would have just listened to the police, if they'd have just done what they said, no matter what the police are asking them to do violates their rights at all, that's your average American today. They are, they worship the authority, and therefore your rights don't matter as if the authority is telling you to do something. You just need to do it and comply because, you know, if you don't have anything to hide, you should hide nothing, right? Because they have every reason to ask you and violate your rights to stop you on the street. It's crazy to me. I just wonder like where that spirit of defiance and that spirit of actually protecting your rights went. And the state has done a good job of it at indoctrinating people to not care about those things so much anymore, to care about, you know, obedience, which is really sad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why you have so many people that are like, that's, yeah, that he deserved it. He's a bad guy. He should have just listened.
Yeah.
And ignoring the fact that there's, you know, that the law enforcement, their job is to enforce laws, not to create new one, and not to just force their will on people. And so it's ridiculous. I mean, even like after I was arrested in Madison Heights on the assault charge, there was a report made when I went to my house to get some personal belongings that I stole a passport, an expired passport, and a birth certificate. And I changed email I changed the password on an email. Okay, and so what happened is I had 2 minutes to get in my house and get some stuff. And so what I did is I grabbed a safe that had some, small fire safe. It had, stuff that I had in there for my bills. It had documents and stuff like that. And so I grabbed that and I took it out of the house, not knowing exactly what was in it. But so I would have all the stuff that I needed. And then I also had my wife, just put it out there, was the victim. I mean, she was the victim, right? So she was on my campaign, and so she had a campaign email. Well, part of when the state gets involved in this bullshit, there's a no contact order. So I'm not allowed to speak with my wife. I'm not allowed to communicate with her. And aside from that fact, there was various other reasons why I didn't want her to be part of the campaign anymore. And so I deactivated the campaign email. It wasn't her personal email; it was for the campaign, and she wasn't in a position where she could represent the campaign, and so I deactivated that email. And then I took the stuff that I needed out of the safe, and then I gave it to my son. I told him to take it back to the house the next day because I didn't need the whole safe. I just needed the stuff I needed so that I could pay the bills and do the stuff I needed to do. And so, but they charged me, and this is where I'm really butthurt because it's such bullshit, and the charges are there, and the charges are never going away. They charged me with larceny, because they say I stole a birth certificate and a passport. The passport was not in the safe. A photocopy of the birth certificate was in the safe. Right. So they charged me with larceny. and they charged me with something called fraudulent schemes, which I don't even know what the heck that even means.
Right.
But
It's
it
like
has
terrorism.
to do with but it has to do with changing, doing what I did with the email account, and so it's such bullshit that these people come up with. It makes absolutely no logical sense. They want to come up as much. They want to walk into court with whatever stack of bullshit that they can pile up, and so that they can muscle you and be like, look, we'll dismiss this, and we'll dismiss this, and we'll dismiss that if you just plead guilty to it.
Right.
And so, that's how the system works.
They pressure.
And it would be ignorant to say that it's a broken system, because it's not broken. It's just a corrupt system. That's the way it's designed. And so, if anything's frustrated me more than anything, it's being accused of things that I didn't do. And that's where I'm really struggling to bite my tongue and to not say things that I think might be harmful to other people. And, and so in some cases I'm just taking some stuff on the chin, and we're going to roll with it, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to, move on to the next phase of our life. So, but yeah, it's once you get caught up in the system, it's like they're like leeches, and it's one thing after another, after another, after another, and it's nearly impossible to get out from underneath it.
It becomes an avalanche of things that they like to pile up against you to pressure you to say you're guilty of something, whether you are or not, just to get done with it, because it's such a hassle. And so I want to thank you for coming on today, and I really appreciate how candid you are about everything. And I understand that there are things that you just can't speak on right now because of, there's still court proceedings and stuff like that. So, but I appreciate how candid you are about all of that. And, I certainly wish you the best of luck. And, I am excited to play this game that you've come out with, A Thin Blue Line. And, is there anything else that you want to leave us with? Is there anything else you got going on? Any .coms you want people to visit, or?
I mean, make sure and check me out on YouTube. My content has been coming out rather slow lately because of the bond conditions, and I'm kind of limited in some of the content that I can produce. But check me out on YouTube. It's just my name, Brian Ellison. And then check out, if you haven't already, check out professionalbully.org. That's our political accountability website. And I hope to be spending some more time fine-tuning that and getting a database put together on that. But that's it for now. And then, like I said, stay tuned. In a couple weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks, we're going to be coming out with an announcement for what our plans are for 2019. So it should be a good year.
Great. Cool. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you guys for listening and spending your time with us. And I hope you found this a productive and enlightening conversation. Peace.